Sorry? Sure.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1. Test 1, 2.
What are you guys going to say?
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
Okay, that's how I'm going to call your high school is over there. Well, I bet you that's good. Come, let's go.
I don't know, he was like the day and Michael pulled up to the prison and go it's been a long and they started, they did his fire top, and they started to treat him right away.
Steve, come to the back for a minute.
Let's stay here. I want to stay with some people. Get the microphone.
Good evening. Please rise and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Okay, thank you. My name is Don Murphy. I'm the superintendent of schools here. Just a couple of notes before we get started. This is obviously a school facility. Requirement is that everybody wears a mask. If you don't have a mask, we have a mask in the back on the table behind the guys with the cameras. So please feel free to grab a mask if you don't have one. So tonight is not an official board meeting. Tonight's focus is strictly about the sale of Whiporwill. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm going to start us off with a brief presentation. We'll pass it over to Barbara from BOCES, who will be presenting on our enrollment report and the graphic study. And then the gentleman from Beechwood will get the baton for the last presentation of the night. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity at the end for questions. We have 2 microphones there in the aisles. So we'll go through our presentations. There'll be a little, like I said, passing of the baton in between each one, and then there'll be as much time as needed for questions. Okay, so first off, I'm going to frame this discussion just a little bit. How we got here. All right, so last school year, the board had approved a contract with Beechwood. Again, I'm here tonight to talk about the sale of Whiporwill. And with that approval, what the board basically said is to the community that there's a decision in front of our residents, our taxpayers, to decide if that makes sense. And so the board is now putting it in the hands of the taxpayers. With that decision has come, of course, these public presentations. Tonight is the second of 3 public presentations. Third presentation will be at the upcoming board meeting, which is on the 19th. And then, of course, we have the vote, which is on the 21st. However that vote plays out, our marching orders, superintendent, I have Joe Tazzer, deputy superintendent here, Bridget Villarreal, who's our business official, and other members of central office who are not here, but all of us, we are, our marching orders there are to honor the taxpayer decision, however that vote goes. Now, at a recent PTA meeting, we talked a little bit about this, and some of the feedback from the PTA council was they appreciated kind of distilling this down a little bit into simpler terms and just through a financial lens. This is me recognizing there's lots of ways to look at a decision of this magnitude, but I'm just going to focus for a moment on the finances. So you can think of it this way. If there's 2 potential financial buckets, right? One is if we were to sell the building for $13 million, there would be costs, right, that would chip away at the $13 million, we call those the relocation costs, meaning those of us that are at Whiporwill, taking us and moving us into different buildings. So that's one bucket of money. Another bucket, right, is just our traditional budget and when we go out for a bond. So I'm going to talk about some of the different investments or possible use of proceeds or improvements district-wide. And as I talk about these things, you can think of it against that comparison, right? There are always things that a district is looking at to improve upon. Our district is no different. And that decision, right, just going back one slide, is if we want to act upon some of these improvements going forward, do we want to have available this new bucket of money that comes from the sale and put this money towards these improvements? Or do we want to say that, you know, that's a great idea, but actually I'm a taxpayer who doesn't want to sell Whiporwill, and I'd rather you use a bond or use general fund money because I'm in favor of some of the improvements that you're talking about. I'm oversimplifying that, but I know that this can be a complicated conversation, so we thought this comparison may be beneficial. So what are some of the viable district-wide improvements? This is by no means an exhaustive pie chart or list, but I'll start on the right with capital improvements, and I'm talking about district-wide here. We're looking at things like replacing doors district-wide with iron security, rekeying, HVAC upgrades, improvements to some of our sports facilities, tennis courts, a high school, looking looking at track replacement, different plumbing upgrades. There's always a need for paving and sidewalks, again, on all of our buildings throughout our campus, and athletic field upgrades at Pines in particular. On the left side of the screen, we've been improving our security apparatus district-wide, and there's plenty more work to be done there. So that includes lockdown systems, right? Those are technological systems that allow us to, in an instant, lock down the campus. Access control, which is related to visitor management, right? Which is checking for visitors as they come into our facilities and check them against different databases. Technology improvements, this is something that we've always been on top of, and there's normally a lifespan to different technology. We're on the precipice of the need for a network upgrade district-wide, and as you can imagine, putting devices in student hands district-wide, and all faculty and staff, our wireless infrastructure continues to expand, so that would be another focus. Lastly, looking at classrooms and curriculum, we've been looking at next generation classroom upgrades, flexible seating arrangements, and other technology improvements throughout our district. Another focus, and let's call it under the umbrella of FAQ, that came from our first informational session was to tell us a little bit more about Whiporwill. Right, so we have 3 tenants in Whiporwill, and with those 3 tenants, we generate revenue from rent. So I'm just going to focus on the most recent year. That revenue was north of $600,000. Right, so that's what we're taking in. On the other side of the balance sheet, our expenditures shows that we had $466,000 in expenditures, which includes everything from utilities to different equipment, contracts, salaries, etc. So the delta there in our favor is about $156,000. Right? So taking the 630, I believe it was, back to 623, subtracted the 466, we're net positive $156,000. And then I think the last piece of that equation, and an important data point for all of you, is, well, if we didn't sell the building, what's on the horizon, right? What are the normal costs that are going to be coming up that we would need to think about? And we've highlighted some of the biggies here, but of course, with any building, there are always ancillary costs. So the biggest of the expenses is the roof. That was last replaced in 1992, as you see up there. So that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million. Paving would be necessary in the coming years. Replacement, we have 2 boilers there. One was recently replaced about 5 years ago. The second boiler would need to be replaced. And then there are some upgrades to the platform that is utilized to manage the bus fueling station. Right, so that's in the neighborhood of $3 million. For context, that's not necessarily on one given day, one given month, or even one given year. Right? We manage those types of improvements thoughtfully through the budget process, but we want to be realistic that these things would be necessary because if we're managing that building, there's only so many band-aids you can put on a building before you need to have some large-scale improvements. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. Right? So that's just our kind of macro-level overview of some of the hot topics. Now I'm going to pass it over to Barbara Graziano from BOCES, who's going to talk about enrollment, the enrollment stuff. Barbara, you want to do it?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Graziano. I am the Manager of School Research and Planning at Western Suffolk BOCES. We conducted a demographic enrollment and facility study for the Hauppauge School District, and I am here tonight to present the findings of the study that we conducted. I'll start just by giving you a little background on the Office of School Planning and Research. Since 1985, we have completed more than 1,100 studies for districts on Long Island, as well as districts in the Hudson Valley area, including Westchester, Orange, Rockland, Putnam, and other New York State counties. Some of the Suffolk County districts that we are currently or have recently worked with include Smithtown, Coleman, Sayville, East Islip, West Islip, and several others there, noted there. I'll start by just giving you a quick rundown on what is involved in the study. We start by researching the demographics of the district, and that would include births, which of course is a very important element in the study. We look at births for the trends in the state, all the way down to the county, the towns, as well as the school district. We also research housing trends, and that includes changes to the levels of housing turnover, changes to the median prices. We also contact the local municipalities to find out what projects may currently be under construction, or if there are any projects for consideration before the planning board. Sorry. The next one, population. We research a lot of census data to look at population trends within the district, and that would include changes to the resident ethnic breakdown, changes to the age structure within the district, as well as various socioeconomic and household variables. And the last one, non-public school enrollment. We research that to find out if there are any changes, any schools that have closed that could impact district enrollment. And then the next is the enrollment. We look at trends over the past 10 years in the district, and that would include migration patterns, grade-to-grade migration patterns. In other words, does the district tend to gain, maintain, or lose students as a cohort moves from one grade in a particular year to the next grade in the following year? From that, we develop migration ratios that are used to develop rate-looking projections going forward. And the last one is the birth persistence analysis. This is where we analyze the relationship between kindergarten enrollment and the number of births 5 years prior. And again, we develop kindergarten birth ratios that are used to develop kindergarten projections. These are some of the research sources that we use. A major one is the Census Bureau, as well as the New York State Department of Education, Department of Health, the New York State Office of Real Property Services, National Center for Health Statistics, Pew Research Center, local planning boards, and all the way down to school district records. I'm often asked about the accuracy of our projections. Overall, enrollment projections produced by Western Suffolk BOCES generally fall within a 4% margin of error, or even better. There are several categories of projections. The first would be projections based on students already enrolled in the system, and these are the most accurate. The next category would be projections based on documented births that are and those projections are slightly less reliable. And the last one would be projections based on estimates of future births, which are the least reliable. Therefore, the most reliable projections are those calculated for the periods closest in time, particularly for the first 5-year period. First, we'll take a look at the demographics within the district. This slide shows you just the resident population within the Hauppauge Union Free School District going back from 1990 through 2020. And As you can see, between 1990 and 2000, there was a slight decrease in the population, followed by an increase between 2000 and 2010, and then another decrease between 2010 and 2020. But overall, although there has been some fluctuation during this time period, the 2020 population reflects stability when compared to the 1990 population in the district. I'm going to skip that next slide for a moment. Although during that time frame the population remained relatively stable, there have been significant changes to the age structure within the district. Unfortunately, this slide is not, it's not showing up as it should. I'm sorry. What I had wanted to show was that, I don't know why this did not translate properly. But in 1990, approximately 60% of the resident population was comprised of residents ages 0 to 19, in other words, preschool and school-age children, as well as young adults 20 to 39. Approximately 40% were comprised of residents aged 40 and over. However, by the year 2019, that had shifted so that now approximately 56% of residents are aged 40 and over, and 44% are either young adults or children within the district. This change in the resident age structure within the district is reflected in this next chart, which shows the percentage of households with children under 18 for the towns of Smithtown and Islip, as well as the Hauppauge School District. If we look at the bottom line, it shows the Hauppauge School District. Approximately 40% of households at that time had children under the age of 18. And that has, as you can see, decreased down to approximately 35% of households with children of this age in 2019. This slide shows you New York State births within New York State, going back to 1990. And at that time, there were almost 300,000 births recorded within New York State. As you can see, that has steadily declined, so that by 2019, there were approximately 221 births. Sure.
So I just want to apologize, the issue with that slide, that was my fault. Albert shared a PowerPoint presentation that I converted to Google. They always play nice in the sandbox, so we're going to set her up with the right presentation and make sure we can go over that slide properly. So that's my fault, sorry.
Thank you. All right, we'll go back to this slide. We'll give you a better idea now. Again, going back to 1990, approximately 26% of residents were aged 0 to 19, in other words, preschool and school-age children. Almost 34% were young adult age 20 to 39. However, by 2019, school-age and preschool-age children, that segment had decreased to approximately 23%, and the young adult segment, ages 20 to 39, had decreased to 21%. And just note that that is the segment of residents of childbearing age. 44% of residents were 39 and under compared to 60% in 1990, while residents ages 40 and older comprised 56% of the population in 2019 compared to 40% in 1990. So that's a significant shift in the age structure of the population. Back to births again in New York State. Since 1990, there's been approximately more than 25% decline in births. Suffolk County shows a similar trend. In 1990, more than 21,000 births were reported. However, that dropped down to approximately 15,000, or a decrease of 29% by 2019. There's a similar trend, not quite as dramatic, but still a downtrend of births in the Hauppauge school district. There were 271 births reported in 2002, and by 2019, 198 births were reported. So if you look back between 2002 and 2006, there were between 227 and 241 births reported during those 4 years. Subsequent to that, there have been 172 to 221 births reported each year. Next, we'll take a look at enrollment. This slide shows you the enrollment trend within Suffolk County going back to 1990. In that year, there were more than 214 students enrolled in Suffolk County's public schools. That increased to a peak of more than 262,000 students in 2004. However, since 2004, there has been a decline of 15% through 2020. Within the Hauppauge School District, there's a similar trend. There were approximately 3,500 students enrolled in 1990. That grew to more than 4,100 students by 2003. However, since 2003, there has been a decrease of 3,200 students, of 22%. So that that has dropped down to approximately 3,200 students, which is about 250 students less than were enrolled in 1990. This chart shows you the enrollment change from 2010 to 2020 over that 10-year period. And during that time, there was a loss of almost 800 students, or approximately 20%. And as you can see, the most significant loss was in the elementary grades, with a loss of 424 students, followed by the middle grades with a loss of 250 students, and then a small loss in the high school grades. However, looking forward to the next 10 years, our projections indicate smaller losses in the elementary and middle grade configurations, while a more significant loss is projected in the high school grades as smaller cohorts move up through the system. Next, we'll take a look at the facilities analysis, which we conducted in the district. We looked at each building and analyzed the space in each building and in order to determine the capacity and then the projected utilization based on the anticipated enrollment. So, what is capacity? Well, the New York State Department of Education defines operating capacity as the total number of students a building can reasonably and efficiently house based on the district's class size policy and the number, size, and current use of the buildings. And our analysis follows New York State Education Department guidelines for new construction. So it is noted that although this is not mandated that students adhere to these guidelines for existing structures, they were used as a benchmark for determining capacity in this study. So some of the factors that contribute to capacity. First is room size. All rooms of 550 square feet or greater, and square footage guidelines per New York State Ed building aids policy. The next is the room usage. It's used for general instruction, self-contained special education, art, music, etc. Also district class size guidelines. And then also the required program offerings and the frequency of the offerings at each grade configuration. So this chart shows you the findings after we analyzed all that for each school within the district. The elementary schools, the capacity of the elementary schools ranges from 791 students at times to 1,026 students at random. And Hauppauge Middle School has a capacity of 1,374 students, and at the high school, 2,046 students. So the utilization, the 2020 utilization for each of those schools ranges from 50 at Forest Grove to 55% at Bretton with the elementary buildings. At the middle school, the utilization is 55%, and at the high school, 57%. And then the last column on the right shows you the projected utilization range based on the anticipated enrollment during the next 10 years. And again, during at the elementary grade, at the elementary buildings, the utilization range is projected to be range within 46 to 56%, at the middle school 49 to 55%, and at the high school 44 to 53%. So to summarize, during the 10-year historical period of 2010 to 2020, there was an enrollment decrease of 796 students, or approximately 20%, with losses reported in all grade configurations. Additional losses are projected during the next 10 years, with the most significant loss expected in the high school grades, as smaller cohorts move up through the system. And based on current enrollment trends, all district buildings will be operating well below their operational capacity during the next 10 years.
Now I have Stephen and Mike for Beechwood, who are up next with their presentation.
Good evening, my name is Michael Dubb. I am the founder of the Beechwood organization, some 35 plus years ago. My son Stephen, who joined me approximately 15 years ago, our chief operating officer, chief legal counsel, Rich Rosenberg, over there. So the school district underwent a process that was pretty rigorous in the selection of the eventual person they would propose as a developer, should this be approved by the community. One of the factors was, I think, the fact that we've built over 60 communities, many in this area. Some of you may know Country Point at Smithtown, 111 and 347. Country Point on Browns Road in Smithtown, and where the old drive-in movie theater was, kind of at the intersection of 347 and 25. We've also built in Lake Grove, Kings Park, Melville, Huntington. My son Stephen is going to give our presentation, but the only comment I want to make is that change is never easy. And sometimes people become accustomed to seeing things and get used to it. And I know the Whiporwill School has been around a long time. But interestingly enough, being a developer on Long Island, most of what we do is repurposing existing properties who have outlived their usefulness. So I think that in this case, I'll give you an example. We had a drive-in movie theater, Country Point in Smithtown, a hospital at the Country Point where 111 and 347 is, out on 347 where we built Country Point at Lake Grove was a driving range. Change is never easy, but I think maybe it's time has come as for you to decide. If you decided, I can only assure you we're here to do the best possible job we can. So having said all that, thank you all for coming out, and I'll let my son Stephen take you through our presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So before I get started, did anyone leave their wallet up here? Okay. Keep an eye on this for you. Okay, so I want to start with just a big overview of how we got here and what we're doing in this room today. So the Whiporwill School closed in 1980, has not been used by the school district for their K-12 program since 1980. Closed for environmental reasons due to the use of the property next door. At some point, the district looked at reopening it. There was tremendous resistance from members of the school district because of the perceived environmental issues. And so the district has looked for other uses for that property for the last 4 decades. The district recognized that enrollment in Hauppauge is declining, and that since the school has not been used in 40 years, since enrollment is projected to continue to decline, even taking into account people moving to the suburbs because of the pandemic, the district decided that it was probably time to monetize this underutilized asset, since it was not going to be needed to be used in the school again. In addition, I think what also informed that decision is that it became clear to the district that this Whiporwill School will need over $3 million in capital expenditure costs in the next couple of years just to keep the building habitable. I'll get into detail on that later. So recognizing that they will not need the school again, and wanting to avoid having to ask district taxpayers to fund an additional $3 million in costs, the district decided to sell the school. And they ran a very competitive RFP process to developers who were asked they solicited bids. We went through a rigorous process. We won it after a couple of rounds and negotiated, frankly, to the point where I don't think anyone would pay any more for the school. So what's the process now? We signed a contract with the district. That contract is going to school district members for a referendum. School district members, majority of you have to vote to ratify that contract or the deal doesn't move forward. So what we are doing here now is information sessions to explain all the factors that went into this decision, what you may think is good, what you may think is bad about it, so that you can make an informed decision when you vote on October 21st. Now, the sale for $13 million is to us so that we can build a for-sale 128 home retirement community. That is the only thing that is written in the contract that we can build. We cannot, nor do we want to, build rental housing, but more important, if you don't trust us, we cannot. It is in the contract. So I've heard rumors that our plan is to build rental housing at the community, and I can tell you that is categorically false. It is an impossibility. Just to give you an idea of that community that we're looking to build, it's 128 townhomes and villas. So these are single level homes with master bedrooms on the first floor. They don't have stairs. They are homes that are designed for people 55 and older. They're smaller, they're low maintenance, and they are all centered around the lifestyle of the community, which is the clubhouse. And the clubhouse has a swimming pool, it has card rooms, it has a gym, you have some sort of movie theater, etc. The clubhouse really becomes the country club for homeowners in these retirement communities. It's where they gather, it's where they meet their friends, it's where they oftentimes get a new lease on life, having gotten out of their single-family homes that require maintenance and snow removal and landscaping, including gutters. And they're able to give all of that up, get rid of it, and just enjoy living their life and hanging out with friends. This slide here shows existing conditions at the school now. This is an aerial of the Whiporwill School. You can see the site, 12.8 acres, is substantially cleared already. On the top of that aerial, you'll see the bus station. There's also bus refueling station. There's also a photo of that at the top right of the screen, and then the bottom right photograph is of the school itself as seen from out on it. This is a conceptual rendering of what the community we would build would look like. A lot of green, frankly, less asphalt than what exists at the school currently, and like I described, townhomes, villas centered around a clubhouse with a swimming pool. And this is what the homes in the community will look like. This is a photo taken from our Country Point Woods development, which is about a mile due north of the Whiporwill School. That used to be Smithtown Hospital. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've redeveloped that into townhomes and villas, again, primarily a retirement community centered around a clubhouse. So there doesn't need to be speculation or imagining what this might look like. I'm showing you a picture right here. So if this referendum passes, I want to explain what it'll mean to the school district. So first and foremost, it will provide $13 million to the district. You heard a little bit about how that money might be used by the district to fund improvements throughout the district properties. In addition to the $13 million at closing, the 128 home community is projected to provide about $1 million a year in tax revenue to the district. So in addition to the $13 million that the district gets to use, there is another $1 million a year in perpetuity. Frankly, everybody knows our taxes go up. So increasing over the years for the district to use for whatever purposes it wants. And that $13 million and that $1 million that go to the school district that currently are not going to the district. The district is not receiving. Think of that as money that can be used towards costs that otherwise would have to be funded by taxpayers. And the other benefit of the referendum passing, of us closing on the school, is that the district gets to avoid having to spend over $3 million on those capital expenditures that I mentioned earlier. So if you add the numbers up, it's $13 million at closing, saves the district another $3 million, and then there's a $1 million annuity to the district going forward. And I should mention that because this will be a retirement community and school-age children are not allowed to live in a retirement community and attend schools, there will be no burden that this district puts on the district, that this community puts on the school district. There will be no cost of additional children from this community that are added to the school district. So that is just a clean $1 million a year. As we heard from Barbara, the BOCES study, enrollment has been declining steadily in Hauppauge. This chart shows the number of students in the Hauppauge School District being at over 4,000 in 2010, and in 2020 being less than 3,500. The right half of this chart shows Barbara's projections where that enrollment is expected to continue to decline. Just to spend a little bit of time on this is more detail on that $1 million a year I mentioned in tax revenue. So what it actually is $1.6 million a year in revenue to the school district and to the town and county. So $1 million, you can see the top line here. The $1,021,000 is what is projected to go to the Hauppauge School District. Of that other $600,000 plus, $266,000 will go to fund the county police, and another $83,000 a year will go to fund the fire district. $22,000 a year will go to fund the Hauppauge ambulance district. And the town water authority will get $2,700. So for anybody who's a big fan of clean water, hooray for this. I want to compare it to the underlying zoning. Right now, although there's a school there, the underlying zoning for the property would, as of right, allow for the construction of 10 single-family homes. And there may be people watching or in the audience today who say a better use for this is 10 single-family homes. So I just want to make the point that 10 single-family homes would provide about $157,000 a year in tax revenue to the district, but after the costs, because these are not age-restricted, with these 10 single-family homes and school children, after the cost of the additional school children those 10 single-family homes would bring, it's actually a negative $88,000 cost to the district each year coming from the development of 10 single-family homes. And again, that compares with $1 million a year from the 128 home community. I said I'd get into a little bit of detail, and I think you saw this chart earlier on the capital expenditures. These are estimates from a report that the district commissioned, has nothing to do with us. $1.8 million to replace the roof, $820,000 to repave the parking lot, $500,000 to replace the boilers in the building, and about $20,000 for upgrades to the bus fueling station. That totals $3,140,000. I can tell you two things about this. One is costs have only gone up in the last few months. Everybody's heard about inflation. We're in the construction business. Our costs have gone up at least 10%. So I'd be willing to bet that the actual cost of this work will be far in excess of what's on this slide. And the second thing I would say is that in order to pay for this, the district will have to issue bonds with interest every year. Interest on those bonds will be funded by tax revenue from district taxpayers. I'm going to go through a few common misconceptions and then we'll open this up to the Q&A. I have heard people say that they think that traffic will increase on Hoffman Lane and in the surrounding area as a result of this community being built. So we commissioned a preliminary traffic study and the results are here on this slide. The red column that you see here are actual traffic counts that the traffic experts picked up when they went out to the school and counted traffic for a couple of weeks. So to take you through it, the morning peak hour between 7 and 9 a.m., 284 trips generated by the Whiporwill school right now. Afternoon peak, 91 trips. Saturday midday peak, 39 trips. Sunday, 126 trips. They then projected what a 128 retirement community would generate in terms of traffic. And the way they are able to project that is they study other retirement communities that have built on Long Island and the traffic that they generate. So compare 284 trips currently to a projected 49 trips in the morning rush hour. 91 trips currently to 58 trips in the afternoon rush hour. 39 trips currently to 29 trips projected Saturday midday peak hour, and 126 trips Sunday peak hour compared to just 27 from this community. So it will not increase traffic on Hoffman Lane. Another misconception we've heard is that this community will become rentals. So as I explained earlier, we contractually cannot build rental housing. All we can build is for sale, age-restricted housing. It just cannot be rental housing. That is purely false. Another common misconception is that we're going to obtain tax abatements in order to get the project built. So we represented in our contract that we will not get any tax abatements. Furthermore, there are no tax abatements available to us for the construction of for sale housing. There are plenty of tax abatements out there available for developers of rental housing. They do not exist for developers of for sale housing. So we will not be getting a pilot or any other tax abatement. And again, that's in the contract. So before I open this up to Q&A, I just want to summarize. The Whiporwill School has not been used in 4 decades. It was not needed in 1990 when enrollment was over 4,000 students. It is not projected to be needed now that enrollment is a little more than half of that. If the referendum passes, it needs $13 million for the school district. That is $13 million that can be used towards school district budget items, that does not need to come out of taxpayers' pockets. It will provide $1 million a year to the district to help pad the district's budget, and another $650,000 a year to the town and county. Passing this will mean that the district does not have to pay over $3 million in capital expenditures. Again, that is a relief for taxpayers. And it will provide maintenance-free living for Hauppauge senior citizens. You heard from Barbara, the fastest growing cohort of Hauppauge's population is people 65 and over. It represents 18% of the population now. Seniors need low maintenance homes to move into because they want to stay on Long Island, and that is what this community will provide. Like I said, there will be no negative traffic impacts to come out of this, and it will not dislocate any K-12 students who are currently in the district. So thanks for listening to the presentation, and we can open it up to questions. Yeah.
Questions, don't mind, just come up to the mic, make a line. Two mics here, you want to come on up and ask whatever question you may have. Yeah, if you could just repeat.
Yeah, what's the average price per unit? You know, when you figured out your economics, what'd you use?
If it was today, it would start in the high 400s and go up to the low 600s, depending on the unit. And 10% of the homes by code have to be for sale affordable housing, so 90% will be market rate.
Okay, so it's roughly around 600,000.
Yes.
And the HOA on that would be?
Like the monthly HOA cost?
You know, the monthly charge for maintenance and stuff.
Usually a couple $100, 400 a month, anywhere between 250 and 400.
About 400 a month?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, okay.
I wish we got that far. We're just trying to get the contract approved.
They look great from what I can see. The taxes per unit would be $13,000 a year. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I thought
I did a quick calculation.
Yeah, I thought that it would be a bit lower, but
No, it's 1645 divided by 128. Comes out about 30.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's all. I have a question to
Sorry, it's 13,000, the taxes for each unit. What part of that is the school tax? Because that's Hauppauge school district.
So I don't know off the top of my head how much of the 13,000, but if the whole 128 home community adds up to $1.6 million a year, and $1.6 million goes to the district, it's.
Is that $1.6 million going to the school district? Is that $1 million going to Hauppauge as a?
No, so in total, community will generate 1.6 million in tax revenue. Of that 1.6 million, 1 million a year goes to the district, the other 600,000 goes to the town and to.
And that's including when the district over the majority of the entitled to the town start.
That includes STAR, yes.
Right, that's not my question, I don't really have a question, but my comment is that I'm very disappointed that the only sign I heard about this whole thing was that I went to ShopRite, and I stopped and spoke to whoever was there for each one. I did not hear about this from my school district.
So we've sent out information.
What information is that out? What information?
It's on social media, it's on our website, it's, blast.
Is that it?
There's a
Is that
flat,
it?
I mean,
Our senior citizens are not on
goes home.
media.
There's
They are not,
fires,
did you send them a letter?
Yes.
Did you send, really? Well, I didn't get a letter. I didn't get a letter. I got lost part.
Yeah, so,
I can tell you,
Really, look at the amount of people that are here. How many people were last week? A lot. Oh, we're doing all right, I don't know. Literally, the night of that meeting, I went shopping. And I'm scared that really this is how you're informing the residents of the Hauppauge school district, of how, what's going on. I got more information from each than I got from my own district, that I'm paying taxes to. I am disappointed in that, I'm sorry, I'm disappointed in that, because I think you need to take responsibility, my mayor, each resident, of investigating
There's
what
another
is
matter
going
coming.
on, and that the vote, when the vote is. You've got 2 weeks, I've got 2 weeks.
so there is another mailing that's going
What
on.
kind of mailing is
We have a
this?
first mailing, there's a postcard with all the information.
Does it look like it's something from Frank, or from Planet Fitness, or Catholic Centers, that goes postcard, that looks like an advertisement, that's what it looks like, it looks like an advertisement. Not a letter informing me what is going on in my district. Okay, my kids are over it. So I'm just saying, no, I mean, really, now people are accepting so that is my problem. I want to let. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm on Hopkins Lane. My real only concern is the road itself. It is, very hilly, dangerous. There was discussion the last time, maybe making another lane to go into the community. I brought up, could we do a better study on that road? For me, a traffic light or a stop sign. I know I brought it up the last time, it hasn't been brought up again. That really is my biggest concern. My house is 4 or 5 houses from the school in it, in the middle of a dead. And that really is my, that's always a concern without a community. So even the traffic impact, the demographic, the blah, 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 the money, the taxes, honestly, I can live with all of that. I've only been here for 50-something years now. So I know progress is inevitable, but I am concerned with the road, new traffic patterns. Again, not necessarily more, just different traffic patterns. Is there any way we could do a better study on the road itself? Because if anyone's driven down Hopkins Lane, once you get over that top, if you just pull your foot up off the gas pedal, you're doing about 55 when you pass Whiporwill.
I'm gonna try to answer your question the best I can. So what we did, and what you saw up here was just preliminary traffic counts. If the referendum is approved, we then have to apply to governmental authorities for real approvals. I mean, we call it a site plan, and we just governmental approvals. And as part of the requirement there, we have to do a full-fledged traffic study. And then the traffic study is reviewed by engineers. And I'm not saying the engineers get it right all the time. I'm saying
They don't.
And I'm like you. I mean, the real way to get there is to look for yourself and see for yourself, not to thumb through pages. But I think they will make recommendations like whether to create a turn-in lane, not make the street 1 lane wider, so that as traffic is coming in from, would be the south, it has a place to get out of the way.
Right.
Stop signs, things like that, so traffic mitigation. So what you saw is just its infancy. There is, and by the way, you'll also have, assuming it's approved, you'll also have more opportunity for input on this in the approval process because there are hearings.
One after it's approved,
Yeah,
then you
see,
still
all
have.
you're approving tonight is the sale. We're trying to give you a general look at what we want to do, but there's a rather rigorous approval process with public hearings by the town of Iceland and everything else.
Okay,
So, and we certainly welcome input.
right.
I get it.
Now, and how would you be known, once and if this is approved, how would I have access to the next?
To the public hearings, there's a couple of things, and I don't know what the radius number is, but when there is a site plan submitted, they draw a circle around the site plan, and everybody within that circle has to be notified by certified mail
Okay,
that there's a certified mail, that there's an application pending. So,
The other thing I would add is when we go through a rezoning process, we reach out to the neighbors in the community, so we knock on doors, we solicit input. It's our goal, our best case scenario is to get as many neighbors on board and supportive of the project, of the rezoning as possible. So you would hear from us during that, before that rezoning happens. And then if we don't knock on your door, if we don't reach out to you, we, as part of our process, when we set up a website similar to the countrypointsprings.com website that is up now, where you can email us or with an email address and a phone number, so you can either email us your concerns or questions or call us.
that is my number one concern, everything else to me is progress, so when I moved into my block, there was 3 houses until Whiporwill.
We gave you the long answer, the short answer to your questions, yes.
Okay, and my other question is, do these facilities, generally have like shuttle for the residents? Or are they really basically on their own? Only because I think that would be another plus if like everybody wanted to go to the mall and Thursday morning they get picked up and get to Lake Grove, you know?
Some of the larger communities sometimes do. Smaller communities don't have a regular shuttle, but they will organize that thing, a shuttle for a particular event.
What is this considered?
I would say this is on the smaller side, so I don't think.
So they may not?
Probably not.
Okay, thank you.
let me just embellish that answer a little bit, because the gentleman before asked about what are the common charges, what will it cost per month, you know, for the clubhouse and the maintenance. These are decisions that are made by the homeowners, just because a shuttle bus costs money. So they're generally made collectively by the association.
My name is Lydia Burgett. I have been a member of the Hauppauge School District since 1986. My first question is, due to my ignorance and with the masks, how many of you up there actually represent the Hauppauge School District? Or are you all from the developer?
3 of us are from central office. And here are district lawyers, and next to the 3 at the end are from the developer.
Okay, thank you. My first question is, if we were investigating selling Whiporwill, how many bids did you seek? Or is this the only one?
We engaged a commercial broker.
You may say it loud, please.
Sure, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We engaged a commercial broker who gave notice to, I would say, scores, maybe hundreds of brokers and developers in the metropolitan area. We received, from memory, I would say a dozen or so bids. We narrowed that down to 4 finalists in all. And we interviewed 4 finalists, and then there was a bit of a bidding war among the 2 finalists. And we ultimately arrived at this price.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My other question is, I have a few, I can go back and forth if you want. Another question I have is, when was this contract signed? I seem to have felt it was signed in August of 2020, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
I have a timeline on this thing. I believe it was April of 2020.
Okay, even further back. So the contract was signed in April of 2020.
21, I'm sorry.
Of 21, okay. The
Month right.
laminated card that has been brought up,
Thank you, Rich.
okay, the laminated card that has been brought up was delivered to my home. And by the time it was delivered, the first meeting date had already taken place. I just want to bring that up to you, that it was not sent out in a timely manner. Now, I do want to remind you, and people out there who are senior citizens and some who are not, that Whiporwill currently houses two, as I understand it, private preschools. The church uses the auditorium on Sundays. Central office is there. And it leads me to reflect, if we sell this property, where will our buses go? Where will all our not transportation, but vehicles that are used by the district? If we intend to send central office and break them up into different schools, I don't understand how in this age of COVID, when we're concerned with separation of kids, despite a slower or even a decrease in the number of students, you're going to take up some of that class space with central office somewhere. And I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, because of the people coming from Manhattan, from areas close to Manhattan, they are coming to my neighborhood with families because they have learned that being out here and not necessarily having to go to work every day is a wonderful thing for their children. So honestly, those estimates or those projections that you have about our enrollment going down, I don't, as a person living on Aberdeen Road in my own neighborhood, I don't see it. I just see more and more young families coming in. Let me see what else. I also want to know, how will voting for this referendum affect us in paying off our bonds, since we're going to be selling to a profit company instead of a non-profit company? That's another one of my questions. And as of this moment, I'm encouraging my friends and my neighbors not to accept this, because when I went to see your establishment or your the new condos over on 111 and 347, my husband and I went with an open mind, thinking, okay, maybe we could move here. We saw other families, other kids, adults who had coached my children, and they were my age now as well. And we all kind of chuckled. Number one, at its location. Number two, at the price. And we're like, we don't need to do this. It would be economically sounder for us to make these senior accommodations in our own home than to sell it at home and move into one of these 55 plus places, which seems, even now, the way real estate is going up, it's going to be more money by the time you actually do this. And the price I paid for my house to have a contractor come in and make it, I don't want to say handicap accessible, but better for a senior citizen, is a more economical way for me to grow. So I did throw out a lot of questions there, and I hope we'll be able to answer some. Thank you.
Can you just repeat your question about make sure we
One of my questions was, if selling to a nonprofit was going to affect the way that we have to pay off our bonds.
There is no debt on this property.
Pardon me?
There's no debt on the Whiporwill property. It's not.
But won't it affect the district and the bonds we paid, we have to pay off as Hauppauge schools?
Well, there'll be
Okay, we'll have that.
additional revenue,
Okay,
which could improve your bond.
yes. Is there any other questions? Anybody know? Now, my concerns are really about where is Whiporwill going to be sent out, to which buildings, which, what are we going to do about overcrowding, because I think that's what will happen.
Yes, fair question. So we would, there's about 50 of us somewhere around there at Whiporwill. We believe we can safely relocate to different buildings in the space there. We have a couple of years to think about where we would go. So it could be that some of us go to the high school, we have PPS department, they may Hilton High School, or they go to another building, you take
I
that?
don't take up space which potentially could be classroom space in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a series of questions, or comments, however you want to look at it. To comment on some other comments previous on the taxes, based on your numbers there, 1.6 million and change, that works out to about $13,000. You add the common reports, you're talking about $18,000 range taxes per year for those units, including the common reports. That's way more than most residents pay in this district, okay? The district did a terrible job of informing the public of this, okay? We signed a contract in April, and I get a notice 2 weeks ago. What happened? I know you can't answer that question. Just so you know, very important, very important. Okay, I'm gonna hit a couple of points here. As the lady just commented, but she missed a very key point. You're gonna have to move district office elsewhere in the district, and that's gonna cost millions, because you're gonna want new offices, new furniture, new meeting room, millions of dollars. And nowhere in that presentation since April have you given us any indication of what that cost is gonna be. And you can't take district office straight over to 6 different buildings. District office has to be centralized. I can't believe you would split the offices up. Maybe you could do it a little bit, but it's not gonna work. You gotta find a place where the district office is located into one location, and that's gonna cost dollars, and you don't account for that. That's gonna come off that 13 million.
We said that the bucket.
The bucket, right, you had the bucket, but you didn't have any numbers there. Okay, you're saying the 13 million is gonna be used for improvements. False, because moving the district office is not improvements, that's new construction. Whole different bucket.
It will be very long, mission cost, clearly.
All right, and I'm not against this. I'm not against it because all the time you just wasted on the demographics was a waste of time. Because if the district showed you were gonna have 10,000 more students in the next 10 years, you would never open that school. I've been in this district 40 years. That school will never be open for students. So to use the demographics as a point to say we have to sell the building is bad information to the district. You would never put students in that school, ever, again. So no matter what the demographic shows, you would never use that school. So you spent a lot of time,
Some people ask though, that what if their population is small, so that was an answer to resident concerns.
but again, this is probably supposed to be at the first meetings that were noticeably, but you're missing a lot of points. Since April, you've had 6 months or whatever it is, there's a lot of information missing, a lot of information. Traffic study, gonna jump to the traffic study. I've never in my life, and I've been involved in this business a long time, have never seen a traffic study that showed, oh, there's gonna be a massive increase in traffic. They never ever showed that. And how can you say that 128 units will add no traffic to Hauppauge neighborhood? That's beyond false information to get into the district.
With all due respect, that is not what I said. I put numbers up on the chart. The numbers were not zero. But my point was that there would be less traffic.
There would be no traffic impact to Hauppauge neighborhood.
What I meant by that was there would be no negative traffic impact because it would be better than the current use of the property, which generates more traffic than a 128 home retirement community would generate. You don't have to believe it, but that's what I said.
All right, that's your opinion. Now, a key point, another key point. It's a 55 and older community. Unless, I could be wrong here, unless it's a CNR or something with the town of Islip. Though I think only one owner of the property, let's assume there's a husband and wife, at least one of them is 55 and older, they can buy a unit. But I don't think there's any restriction you can put on if they have children. I don't think you can exclude children.
Children under,
Richard Rosenberg, I'm general counsel. It is perfectly legal. In fact, residency in the ISLA directory is specifically for seniors. You can legally discriminate to a 55 and older community and prevent anybody with school-age children from living there. It's in the code, it's enforced by the town, it's enforced by the condominium association also.
That's okay. I wasn't sure of that, because I know of another development where that's not the case.
Well,
And
just to rehash what Stephen had said, when we go for the issue right now is, does the property get sold or not? When we go before the municipality of Iceland, they are going to require covenants to that effect, and it's in their code right now. So what Stephen said is 100% true. It categorically cannot be done for rental. In the contract, it says for sale.
okay. The photos you showed, I think you mentioned they were one-story units.
so, yeah, I showed photos of townhomes and villas. The photo I showed is a building that has some townhomes and some villas. The villas are one-story units. There's a lower unit and an upper unit. So when you're in your home, it is one story.
But you still got to negotiate steps to go upstairs.
If you live in the upper villa, yeah, but they also come with elevators. So we usually, if somebody doesn't want to take the steps, they'll take the elevator.
Let me just check. I got a couple more. I think I'll end off by saying, well, what I really come to. Construction costs, you mentioned new materials were up 10%. You can honestly tell me that construction costs in the last year and material costs only up 10%, you're living in a different country. Okay? Lumber costs in the last year is up 260%. Don't say to anybody 10%. Okay? You can't say 10%, you can't say 20%, you can't say steel is up 70%. So these units are gonna cost, you're not gonna get $400,000 units, take whatever it comes. No.
So if you let me, lumber was up more than 260%. It was up close to 300%. It then came down. My lumber costs in early September were equal to what they were a year ago. Now it's gone up a little bit. That's just lumber. Lumber is only, so it's just a piece of your.
It's a whole fact.
Then you get increases from plumbers, electricians, siding contractors.
Everything. No, costs are up, costs are way.
Costs are up, but our costs are up less than 10%. I think for normal people, they're probably a little bit more than 10% more in our business.
And just to comment to everybody out there, the majority of people who buy these units, not the ones on 111, are not from the community. They come from outside the community.
So what I'd say to that is the first thing we do is market to the community. Before we start advertising publicly, we put signs outside our community because we want to first offer homes to the local community if we can. It is absolutely true that people buy homes in these communities coming from elsewhere. There have been 588 homes sold in the Hauppauge School District in the last 3 years, according to local listing service. I can guarantee you the majority of those homes were people coming from outside of Hauppauge also. It happens, make no representations that it won't, except to say that the first thing we do is reach out to the local community, try to get them first look.
Just to end, again, I'll repeat myself, very bad PR with the community. It'd be my suggestion that this referendum needs to be postponed to a later date until you inform the community. In particular, the most important is where are the district offices going and how much are they going to cost, how many dollars you're going to invest in relocating those offices. I think that information needs to be out. Demographics, waste of time for this presentation. That's for something else. It has nothing to do with the sale of this building. If you can tell me otherwise, how the demographics connected to the selling of this property, I can't figure out the connection. But that's a long. If I could get a second for the next question. Just to detail what we at Beechwood have done in terms of outreach, I've got it listed here. So we did send out a postcard to over 8,000 homes in the Hauppauge School District. I believe that is every home that is in the district. I know that people did not receive their postcard. Some people didn't receive their postcard before the first informational session a couple of weeks ago. That was not our intention. The mail went out slower than we intended. So some people got it before, some people got it a couple of days later. We are also sending out additional postcards to the community to make sure that we blanket the community as much as possible. We've done door-to-door outreach. We've knocked on 681 doors in the school district. 208 people answered the door, but we left postcards and trifolds at all 681. Those are the 681 homes closest to the Whiporwill school. That's 45 streets that we have walked down and knocked on doors. We spent 10 days with a stand at ShopRite, so somebody mentioned that they heard about this from ShopRite. The point of that was outreach. That was from September 12th to September 26th. We were there every day. And then we have reached out to local civic groups and stakeholder organizations in the community. September 26th, we attended the Southern JCC Fall Festival from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we have met with the Hauppauge Library Board of Trustees, the Hauppauge Fire District, Spring Meadows, and Hauppauge Co-op, the Hamlet and Windwatch, is actually scheduled for next week. And of course, we have our website out there with all the information available on it and needs to contact us if you want to speak to us directly. So that just to maybe head off any concern about our outreach, I understand this is directly with you guys, but that is what we've done.
Well, I have a question for this work. On East Side Street on Hauppauge, and I've lived there for 35 years. The traffic is a concern. I pull the kid out of the car all day. Every winter, it is horrible. I'm the only one that maintains the road over there. No one helps. That is a major concern. I'm not opposed to change. That's why I do the same as you do. I'm not opposed to it. I own 2 building lots there. The only other thing I'm concerned about is what is the percent of affordable housing?
So it's required by the town of Abatements. It's actually required by all towns in Long Island. Any new development project has to be 10% affordable. It doesn't apply to a single family home if you're building a free-home subdivision. If you're building retirement homes, you've got to have, or a condo community that's not age restricted, you have to have a 10% affordable component. The town basically sets what those prices are. I think we made an assumption based on the code that the price of those affordable homes would be somewhere in the low to mid 300, 325 to 350 would be the affordable housing. They are also age restricted. It is for sale, so they have to buy the house. And there, if I recall correctly, there are restrictions on how much they can sell the house for in the future and when they can sell the house. So,
If I could just add to that, one thing about the affordable housing requirement on Long Island is they can't be a separate area of a community. They have to basically be the same home, same look. So if we took the community at 111 and 347, there were 7 affordables in there, and I think they were around 350. But you would drive through, you could never pick out which ones they are. They're regular homes. They're just the people who that qualify. You have to be under a certain income and above a certain income and have credit, and it's a rather rigorous process. So that's just embellish Stephen's explanation.
The road is not a concern. You haven't lived there. I've lived there since '85. It's a bad road. I pulled the kid out of my car. I had cars flipped over in front car. I own 2 building lots right there. I have 5 acres across the land. It's terrible. Something needs to be addressed about it. The analyzer was horrible about taking care of that street. I watched the school district's vehicles in the woods. I went to the woods.
Let me address that because I just want you to understand the process. Right
purpose of the traffic study was merely to say there are 5 users of the school, and that will be replaced by 128 senior development. The whole purpose was people said it's going to be onslaught of traffic, and in actuality, it's eliminating traffic because 5 users to 128. And the way they do it is they look at peak hours and all. As far as you're concerned, our concern is the same. We go through a rigorous approval process. We do a traffic study. The municipality tells us what intersections to show. During the process, it's public opening and public can bring that to it. We hire an engineer. They come up with and rigorously view and review the traffic. At that point, it's given to the town, it's given to the county. They then review it and say, okay, this is the mitigation that's required. So we're aware of the topography, and at this point, it gets addressed during the approval process. They are not going to approve this project unless if there are issues there, they have to get mitigated, and that's comes on our shoulders part of the approval process. And I would encourage you to be close by. Again, we feel the best information is as much information as possible. We really tried. We're going to do the same thing through the town. There's several hearings that's going to be. You're going to get noticed. It's also going to be noticed in the paper. And you can be part of that process. And candidly, if you give us our name, we'll bring you into the process too, because you have the knowledge. Sorry? Exactly. And we welcome your input.
Yeah, well, you know those people I've ever seen on Sunday there, you're United, the Living World Church. Now they just put a 5-acre piece down the road, and they have 100 people there every Sunday. Or 200 people there with another 100 cars. We're not getting any of that.
Actually, the numbers that showed it is that the senior community.
I don't know for that part.
No, I'm actually agreeing with you. I'm not sure where they're coming from, but the senior community during the rigorous hours adds 26 cars per that period. So again, I'm happy to show you. It's on our website. It happens in Dennis School.
I live there, Living World Church, you're a fan. Just put a piece of property right there, right there, wrong. And their congregation on Sunday, and I'm not opposed to it. Is that traffic included in all this? Because I don't see it. I live right there, I see it coming out. They just drive right out.
Yeah, so by the time the referendum is approved, we go for our rezoning. By the time we're in front of the town, I talk about rezoning the property for the 128 homes. And we have to do a formal traffic study. Like what you saw here were just preliminary numbers. The formal traffic study, they will absolutely, they will absolutely take into consideration the traffic from the church, whether it's at the Whiporwill school or in its new location. It will be considered. What's that?
They gotta work on Sunday, or the congregation, when they're busy. They hold the traffic on that road.
Yeah. When we do the traffic study to come up with remediation or mitigation. Yes. Sure, yes. They will.
I'm not opposed to changing, but that street is treacherous.
Understood. And I think chance to mitigate it
I
is.
see a water skip on, I do the guy on the first.
Okay, understood.
True story.
No, I believe. I understand. And part of our development, I don't know how many ones I can say, would be we have to mitigate the street. So we'll come up with ways to make it safer.
Because I made some stop sign that's right in the middle there, for 10 years, and nobody's done.
Understood. We've been involved for 2 weeks.
All right, nobody's talking about it.
We don't own the property, we can't change. I don't know what else.
Thank you.
Hi there. My question is for the new development, the waste disposal system, will that be sewers or cesspools? Do you know yet, or is that still?
Oh, okay, it's going to be sewer. The question is whether it's going to be, whether there's sufficient capacity in the adjacent sewer treatment plant or on site, but either way, it cannot be built unless there's sewer. So it's our responsibility to build it.
Okay, thank you.
That's good.
offices used to be in the middle school, before they had a major renovation. Maybe something to consider. As far as the affordability of the units, considering the taxes and the HOA and stuff like that, that's an individual decision. And that's, up to the people that would be considering it as a trade-off between what you're paying in the current home. So that's, we're not going to solve that here at all. Okay. Be very careful about projections. I was here when they were projecting that this district was going to experience a severe decline in student population. They had on the market Hauppauge, now known as the Lakes. They had Whiporwill, they had Forest Park. This district would have sold all three. I saw the projection, now this was in the 80s that were projecting this, but the reality of it is the population increase. And because of that, in Brent Woods, I believe they had temporary trailers that had to be used. And it was fortunate that the only school, and it was a really nice school, the only model school, was sold. But the other schools, and thank God they weren't sold, because Forest Park is being well utilized. You guys have utilized Whiporwill for offices, and you got some rental income. With the projections, you gotta make some accommodation for possible black swan events. And if you can accommodate an increase in enrollment up to 20-25%, something like that. And some of that may involve politics, state politics, federal politics, I don't know. And I don't get anybody fingers either. One item, I'll just leave it out, and maybe I'm missing something, but one of the charts showed projections in enrollment decrease, but then the utilization rates in the schools seem to be the same, or very close to the same. And I'm thinking, well, if the projections are decreasing, why wouldn't the utilization rates increase? Well, maybe I just didn't see it right. They didn't look a whole lot different. Okay, because it looked, all right, so you're saying that there's enough elasticity in the remaining schools that any, like I say, a black swan type event could be accommodated? Because that's important. You certainly don't want to go out for a bond issue, buying land and erecting a new school. I mean, I know I'm not going to be around for that, but somebody would, but they know. That's it.
So the number put before us is $13 million. Has the district expended a lot of money so far in reaching this point as far as brokers that were hired, legal costs, or any other expenses just to get to this point?
The broker will only be paid as if and when title closes. You have incurred some legal fees along the way in terms of negotiating, drafting, researching, etc.
How much does that cost us?
The school district then is liable for some cost to the broker once the deal closes?
I'm sorry, sir.
So are you saying the school district will be liable for some additional costs to the broker once the deal closes?
It will come out of the proceeds.
So how much is the broker going to, broker's fees going to cost the district after $13 million?
I don't know the rubber ignition off the top of my head. It would come off of the 13 million, so the district would come out of pocket for it.
So we talking, you know, 5-6%, I would pay for my house, or something similar.
Guys, it's 3.5%. Something like that.
So it's 3.5%, so we're looking at $450,000 or so, coming off the 13 million, plus an additional cost for relocating the district offices, which is unknown. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. Now, on the other slides, earlier, reference receiving $13 million, there was $15 million of additional cost that the district wanted to incur now for various improvements. Are any of those currently in the school budget for the current year or the upcoming year, or on the table for any of the long-range plans that are out there for the district? You know, so a lot of these, there's $12 million of upgrades and improvements, which would seem to be, you know, more ordinary, usual costs to maintain buildings. There's only approximately $3 million of new costs. $1 million in that was for actual curriculum.
Everything listed on the board that you saw, the 12 million, is not a part of anything that's happening this year. If it was a part of anything that's happening this year, we wouldn't be able to include it there. All of these items are based on the building condition survey. That's something that the state education department does for each school district every 5 years. So this is based off the 2015 building condition survey. The next time the district is due for a building condition survey is 2023. So from the building condition survey, that is how the facilities committee bases their recommendation to the superintendent, and then the superintendent makes the recommendation to the Board of Education. And from there, determining what project happens around the year, depending on need, depending on debt schedule, and many other items. So this is just a comprehensive list from the building condition survey.
A lot of that seem like cyclical type expenses that normally flow through the school budget over a period of time.
Right.
That's $12 million.
Some could be, so it's similar to your house at home. You know, your roof only lasts 30 years approximately. Your heating and cooling system only lasts so long. These are all things that eventually will need to be redone at every single building.
So we foresee some reduction to our school taxes as a result of whatever is left over after the deal closes?
Not at the current time.
And just thought, I think it's kind of a shame that this community outreach has come from the developer, very little with anything. Like I haven't had a child in the school for 20 years, so I have no need to look at social media or the school district webpage or any of the other places. This is a very significant event in the school district, and like radio silence on our promote works. Great. Thank you.
In the 1970s, when my daughters were both going to the school year, and we had a problem with the dump, and we used to pick it at the town hall, the ISO town hall, and we used to have picket signs. And we would say, dump the dump, because we wanted them to close the dump. Because the seagulls were dropping chicken bones on our kids' heads when you were at recess, you know. So what the ISO town district did, they closed Whiporwill, and they got the dump open. So then, 8 years later, my daughters had to finally go to the other schools. At the time, we were still Honey Hollow. And so we had the Pines, we had Redwoods, we had the Pines, Redwoods, and we had also Forestburg. So then they had nowhere to go, these kids, so they moved them to the Redwoods school, and they had the portables in Forestburg. And then 8 years later, when my son was born, they had a kindergarten center over at Forest Brook. And that's all the kids that went there for kindergarten, because there was no room for them to go anywhere else. So they went there for the first year. And then they came, and then they all went to where it was. So my point that I'm thinking is, I don't know if it's a good idea to sell for $1 million 1 acre of property. If we ever need this back again, we would never find it. We would never get it back. We would never find property. And I don't know if this projection is right. Maybe they are right. Maybe we are going to just have a decline. But from what I hear, a lot of pregnant people during COVID are pregnant. We're going to have a lot of babies. And we're not going to be able to get so anyway, so I don't know if it's a good idea. I don't know. We're getting $1 million for 1 acre of property. We can never find it. It's like you can't even buy any property outdoor. And we get this area at all. You know, there's no property for sale. So I don't know if it's a good idea. Once we sell it and it's gone, and we need it, we're going to be out of luck. Those portables were terrible. They were cold in the winter. They were hot in the summer. And all the kids really, you know, and then we still have just one middle school. And all these other schools now are coming into the one school. I mean, what if we do have a baby? People are selling houses like crazy. I still have people buying, families coming buying homes, you know, buying homes out here. And the older people are leaving, they're moving to other places because of taxes and traffic. But I just feel, you know, that I don't know if this is a mistake to sell it. Once we sell it, that's it.
Thank you.
We've been in the district in Hauppauge for 54 years now. We've had children go through the schools. And sitting here tonight, I don't know whether this is an excellent idea. It's nice to know that developers, real estate people are interested in Hauppauge. And I'm not against change. I think there's a big need for something like this. But I think so many questions have come up tonight. And the next meeting, I understand, is the 19th, with the vote on the 21st. I would say that, given what I've heard tonight, there's no way that the 21st is going to be able to be the date for an academic, an intelligent vote with the information I've heard here tonight. I'm a member of the town of Iceland. I'm not quite sure how this property will affect us in Iceland. And I'm sure the people in Smithtown have the same question. So there's that idea of the district and the two towns and how this will bring up questions. What does it mean for each town? I don't think that was explained. I think the people on Huff that live nearby have many, many questions that need to be answered. And there seems to be a willingness on the part of the developers and the part of the board to meet with that problem. But time is short. So I would suggest that, it was already mentioned, I'd like to second the idea that maybe the vote for the 21st should be reconsidered. Because number one, there seems to be a communication problem. Now, my wife and I think some of my neighbors have been approached. We met the people at ShopRite, we met the people in the neighborhood, but I hear from the community here tonight that there have been problems with communication. So whether this is a good idea and people want to vote for it, whether maybe it's not such a good idea and people want to vote against it, I don't think we'll have that decision by the 21st in any knowledgeable way. So I would suggest that, to be fair to all concerned, and it seems like there's been quite a bit of effort and money probably invested in these contracts, research. And then we have, when was all of this done? None of the dates were mentioned. Was this done pre-pandemic, before the real estate bidding wars started and the prices changed? Or was this done after that and our prices different now?
It was done during the pandemic, after prices changed.
After prices changed. So these are realistic figures as of today. So I would suggest, most importantly, that the date of the 21st, if the next meeting is the 19th, and you really have a need to meet with local people that live on, right in the vicinity. And I know that will be done after the site plan, but there are questions that have to be done beforehand in order to get to this point, to make a decision. So I respectfully submit that maybe the date of the 21st is not a wise.
How's it going? I just wanted to circle back to the broker's fees, regarding the 13 million. Would they come out of 13 million? So realistically, it'd be like 12.5 would be done with for this?
So right now, the exact numbers, 3.5% at closing, 13 million is $455,000 off the top.
Okay, so the wheels, that's it. But I just want to thank you guys for being in the hot seat tonight. I know I'm the kind of fun listening to all the questions and concerns, but I know it's tough for you guys. And in the first meeting as well, you guys were really good. I definitely had a better understanding coming to tonight. And I know there's been some issues with like communication, more on like the school district's end, but I've been hearing a lot that people are open to change, but then when it comes to communication, they still want the same old way. So I don't know if that's a disconnect between us and the board. You know, I did hear it from ShopRite on your side, but you know, hopefully we can get a better understanding between how we can connect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going on this slide, so you think I'm another person.
We know it's you.
This is Lydia Burgett again from Aberdeen Road. I had gone through all my questions that I prepared before arriving tonight, but in sitting with the audience, certain other things were triggered in my head. One of the things had to do with, we were talking about in the new development, that you had a certain percentage of the homes would be for, let's say, affordable housing, and you mentioned like 300,000 or whatever it was. That triggered in me something about affordable housing units being built in the industrial park. Did that go through? And if so, were those children going to come into our district?
The school district has brought litigation against the town sometimes, and special counsel challenging the overlay district in the Hauppauge Park. So that litigation is still pending, and I don't know what.
So it technically it could happen, and then our numbers would spike a little bit.
I can't predict the future of what developers may wish to develop there, what the town has done in the zoning overlay district to allow.
All right, I understand you can't predict the future, but you, sir, just a few moments ago said, by the time this referendum is approved, you didn't say perhaps it will be approved, you didn't say if it will be approved, your exact words were predicting the future, by the time this referendum is approved.
I try to be optimistic.
Was that misspoken? Oh, you tried to be optimistic, okay.
Yeah, if you're suggesting the vote is rigged,
I don't know, okay. But it just hit me funny that one future, one not future, no. Okay, then my last thing, I hope, has to do with the fact that, as everyone said about the communication, there is no school board member here, correct?
It's not like one.
Superintendent of schools here.
Yeah.
You are the superintendent.
Yeah. So
But the new one,
a new one, superintendent, assistant super business, and deputy superintendent.
thank you. Okay. You haven't contacted me.
I haven't contacted you.
The school board, the school district, central office. I just got that one laminated late card. I hear rumors, and I was the one who suggested, wait, didn't you sign this contract a while back, which you did? I don't understand if the school district is allowing Country Points to contact us, why aren't you? I just want it clear to me, are we supporting this or not?
Okay, so there is a case in the New York Court of Appeals from the 1990s saying that a school board cannot use taxpayer funds to argue or exhort the electorate to vote a particular way. So just like the budget vote, when you get your group budget brochure at district expense, they can lay out facts, okay? But they can't urge you to vote in any particular fashion. So this is very analogous to your regular annual budget vote, and that's distinct roles of the school board, which must maintain some degree of neutrality. And obviously the developer is.
But couldn't you have a loophole, let's say contact Smithtown News or Smithtown Messenger or whatever we have, and put an article in that and what's just
We
nothing?
have complied with all legal requirements for legal notice. We published in the official newspapers 4 times in 7 weeks prior to the election. We sent out at the do it budget vote postcards on the website. John, why don't you pick up what else?
Well, I didn't get any postcard except from the developer.
And there's more postcards coming out. We put it on the electronic sign, we put it on, we have a special section on the website. We do put it through social media streams. I've taken in all the points made tonight, trust me, about
You're gonna correct me.
about that communication.
All right, because I don't go on.
There's an
the
email
website.
blast. You know, so parents get, different communication, have different communication options being part of the platform they use in the district than.
But I'm not a parent, so it's
So what I'm saying is on our website, there's an email blast that anybody can sign up for, so we send it out that way as well. But I get it, that traditional mailings, which is what Gene is talking about.
Right, even if you want to
those
send me the
have gone out
facts,
as
you
well.
can send me the facts from the school district.
Yeah, so those have gone out, and there will be another one going out as soon as this Friday.
Well, they went out to somebody except people on Aberdeen Road, I guess.
Say
Well, I said they must have gone out to people other than Aberdeen Road, because they didn't get it. But that's about it. Thank you for letting me speak twice, and that's all I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Abatements analysis, thank you so much for this informative evening. I'd like to know how I can vote on this from out of town as dated. This goes on.
Absentee ballot, you could request from the district twice.
Okay, thank you. They are.
Make a return. Attorney appearance. Again, I don't want to be repeating myself what other people said, but you have here on the brochure that some of us got in there, immediate positive impact, $13 million. Well, we just heard tonight that $500,000 is the commission for the real estate. So it's not 13, it's 12.5. Plus, as I said before, you have to hit a number in there for the relocation of the district office. That's not gonna be a $10,000 bill. That's gonna be a $10,000 with a couple of zeros. And if you do move into one of the schools, be it the high school or the middle school, and I was here, you spent a load of money, put the district office in the middle school, and renovating and everything, they got it all torn out and made classrooms. If there's space somewhere in the rooms, in the buildings, and the demographics is a little off, and you need that space 5 or 10 years from now, now you're moving the district office out again. I mean, I realize the board changes, but you guys have no idea what long-term planning is all about. You plan for the next 2 years. You gotta plan for the long term. I mean, I never heard of a district that keeps moving their district office. I don't get it. You guys are lost. These guys here are professionals. They have developments everywhere, all over the place. They know what they're doing. I'm getting to that point, because they're not giving us the full story. If this gets approved, this is down to you guys, to give you guys a little bit of that education. If it gets approved, whatever it does, Then it becomes, it's out of the school district's hands. It becomes the town of isolation. They are only required to notify people who live within 200 feet of that property of when the next meetings occur at ISO Town Hall with regard to the zoning change, and further on with the site plan approval. So they will post signs in front of the property. I have no cause to drive down Hoffman Lane, so I'll never see that sign to know. So everyone has to be, and this is very few people here compared to the people in the district. You have to keep your eyes informed of what's going on, because that'll go to zoning, there'll be no input. At the zoning meeting and the site plan meeting, that's when you guys gotta go after the town and say, I want that road improved, I want a traffic light, a stop sign. That's when you have to push. It's the town of Iceland. These developers are gonna make, they're in business to make money, like everybody, and they're entitled to make their profit. But they have to give back to the community and make improvements to that road or that area that makes everybody happy, basically. And I know you've done it. I know in other projects you've made improvements to the community, to the local area, or whatever. 111, 347, that's a tough one over there. But that's, that's a whole different story. But again, you gotta get communications. One last thing, this vote needs to be pushed back. You need to give us better. Mr. Johnson, I know you're for a long time. I know you recognize who I am. Okay. You're ill-informing everybody what's going on. The majority of people don't even know about this. I guarantee you, I'm trying to listen stuff up. And this is a big thing. I've been here a long time. I suppose all of this. Thank you again.
Neil Monroe, 15 years resident in Hauppauge. Graduate of 1981, largest class in Hauppauge. I saw all the changes to all the schools, 5 different elementary schools that we had. We sold property in Hauppauge in the past. I see these projections that I saw tonight. I think it's very inaccurate. I'm seeing a lot of people from New York City moving out to Long Island, and there's a lot of kids coming with that. They're not going back to the city. Also, I coach many teams, HYO. Those fields are used for Hauppauge community people, and we don't have enough room on the existing schools that we actually have now with the volume coming to these other schools. We even use Hidden Pond Park as one of our practice fields, which is an isolated facility in Pond Park. I talk about community, the school itself. We have preschool there. We have two families working, bringing their children to the school. Where are these kids gonna go?
So, if we can even address preschools. So, the sale is not happening tomorrow. The two tenants, preschool tenants who are in the school currently signed short-term leases. The intention, speaking for the district, don't correct me if I'm wrong, and tell me that I can't say, the intention was never to have them as permanent tenants in the school district. The leases have either short-term expiration dates or month-to-month expiration dates. My understanding is one is a for-profit, one is a not-for-profit. My understanding is they have a total of about 300 preschoolers. Of those 300 preschoolers, only about 80 live in the Hauppauge school districts. The majority of preschoolers that are using that facility are outside the district. That is my understanding. And like I said, they have plenty of time to move. I don't think the intention building the Whiporwill school was to lease it out to preschool tenants. Preschools operate in all kinds of retail, office locations elsewhere on Long Island. I think one of the operators said herself in the last meeting that she has leased space in other places because she's so busy. So obviously, it's possible to lease spaces. We are all aware in this room that there's plenty of office and retail space available around because because of what the pandemic has done. In a lot of places, it's available at very economic rates. So nobody up here is excited about putting the preschools in a position where they have to move, but I can tell you that the district never intended for them to be permanent tenants. They will have plenty of notice and time to make plans to move. And there are available options around the district as far as we can tell.
We're building.
And, the introduction here stated the sale of Whiporwill, that was the introduction. That didn't sit well with me, sitting in the audience. I found out about this last week. I sit on 2 current boards, local boards. Nobody knew about it. And Joe brought up a valid question. The projected cost of relocating all of this stuff in Whiporwill. What is the cost? That should be up there. And I believe this whole vote should be postponed.
Say, at Hauppauge community, that this is, last week was the same thing, last meeting was the same thing. I told 5 of my friends about this, they didn't even know about it. They never got a postcard, and I don't think that this is fair, really, we can talk to the community should be more interested, and I'm very disappointed in not, they're not. But I don't know where they are, I think they don't know about it.
Well, remember, these are live broadcasted on YouTube, so I think there are a lot of people who maybe are fearful of coming into a room with others and deciding to watch it.
Great excuse.
And besides the point, I think I went through what our outreach has been, but we have sent a postcard to every home in the Hauppauge community. I realize not all of them got it before the last informational session. However, some people get mail, you get a postcard, you don't look at it, you throw it out, so you think it's junk mail. So we are sending out not 1, but 2 more rounds of postcards. So we as Beechwood are, I think, going above and beyond to be
The
transparent.
vote is 3 weeks from today. The vote is gonna be in 3 weeks. This is gonna be it. It's 2 weeks out. People don't even know about this. So I don't think
Can you just come up to the mic?
My postcards are mailed out here. It's not first class mail, and that takes a very long time. The post office just announced recently that first class mail is going to take up to 5 days to get delivered. So I would bet that you don't even have the postcards printed. Am I correct?
Postcards are being printed this week.
Being printed this week. So you don't, as I just said, you don't have it printed yet. And you're gonna mail out 2 mailings, they're gonna arrive in December. That's not with my Christmas cards.
The same process used for the budget.
You guys are just sitting there, you're not acknowledging it. You're not acknowledging that you have not informed the community of this event. And you bring these items ahead, and I know we're gonna leave, but you don't want to do what you want to do. Right? Are you
That's not acknowledging, that's why I'm not.
Will you as a supervisor, not supervisor, superintendent, will you commit tonight that you will postpone this vote?
No, I can't, I don't have that authority. What I will do is bring your feedback and take notes.
The board has the authority to do that, correct? The board has the authority to do that?
I believe so, but I honestly need to take.
What's the attorney say? Who has the authority to postpone the vote?
Board of Education.
Okay. They should be here tonight.
Yeah.
I was on a board meeting, they should be here hearing what the community has to say. Come in, you guys don't have to vote.
I'm willing to do that, I'm taking your feedback and I'll share it.
Great.
You guys, am I correct, don't have a vote on the board? Neither of you have a vote.
No.
A vote, you can't.
No.
Oh. Do you guys, this needs to be postponed, we need to see those numbers. The 13 million is not 13 million. okay? You lost $500,000 on the commission, you got a couple of million for renovation and moving of the district office, and where you're gonna put the vehicles, are you gonna rent a spot somewhere, or maybe you're gonna park them on the baseball field, high school, that's a night, right? Which leads me, Mr. Taz, did I hear earlier that you have to replace the track at the high school? How old is that track?
20 years ago.
No.
No way.
No way.
That track, wasn't that track put in when you did the field and you went to that?
It was done before, it was done when I was in probably.
Further back? Well,
I don't know the exact time, it's not brand new track, the track has like.
and I thought it was done when you did the actual field. Okay, but maybe you gotta spend that million on the relocating the district office. You gotta think about that.
Anybody else like to come up with a question? Last question of the night.
I know Beechwood, mentioned the Hyatt. You would meet with the community over at the Greens and Wind Watch over there. I know the feedback over there, that's gonna be feedback, being on that. But, they have a new condo that was supposed to be built over there. And now it's converted to a office. So everything was passed as a condominium. Then the town of Islip reversed it and converted it to an office.
So, I'd encourage you to read the sales contract here, because it specifically says that we can only build for sale housing. The other thing I would say is who you're dealing with is important. And we're not apartment developers. We've built over 60 communities across Long Island, most of them under the Caution Point brand. You cannot find an instance where we got a for sale community approved, built a rental community. So I know the developers who are building there, they're out of state. That is not who we are. We live and die on our word and our reputation in Long Island. And we've never done that, and would not do that, because we'd be out of business, we wouldn't be able to get anything else approved.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight, we appreciate your public participation. The next session is at the board meeting, which is on October 19th.